Yeah, let's settle in here and get started here. Give everybody, all the members, find their seats. Give them a chance to find their seats. Before we get started, Senator Storm has a guest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have my brother, Donovan, in the room today. He's with Farm Bureau. I'd ask the body to make him welcome.
Hey, Donovan. Welcome to our committee. Any other members have guests in the audience they'd like to mention? All righty. Well, welcome to our fourth meeting of the Senate State and Local Government Committee. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Chambers Armstrong. Senator Elkins. Senator Harper Angel. Senator Mays Bledsoe. Senator McDaniel.
Here.
Senator Storm.
Here.
Senator Thayer.
Here.
Senator Wheeler.
Here.
Senator Williams. Senator Nemes. Senator Mills.
I'm here. Senator Elkins is here. He didn't answer the roll. And Senator Williams is here. He didn't answer as well. Senator Nemes is out in the hall. He'll be here in just a second. All righty. We do have a quorum. Just want to remind everybody to silence their cell phones and make sure when you're speaking that you speak through the chair and that you use your mics and make sure the green light is on our microphone. Before we get started, I want to make a couple announcements. We are going to be passing over Senate Bill 8 and also Senate Bill 131. If you're here for those bills, you can go to lunch early if that's your desire. Not members of the committee. All righty. First item on our agenda is Senate Bill 4. This is brought by Senator Higdon. As he comes to the table, I'll mention that this bill has been vetted before PPOB, and if you remember as committee members, one of our rules is that any pension-related bills needs to be vetted through PPOB, and I believe we have one more meeting left that we could vet a bill for this session. So, Senator Higdon, there is a committee sub, is that correct? And I believe that was emailed out to all the members last night.
Correct. That is correct.
So if we could have the motion on the committee sub. We have a motion and a second. All in favor to adopt the committee sub, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. The bill as amended by the committee sub is before us. Senator Higdon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My intent with this bill is to make sure that sick days are equal to all teachers and administrators across the state. The sick day program has been around for a long time, and over the years it's kind of morphed into something that it was originally meant to be 10 days a year. That's the way the law started. And to make the program fair and equal to every classroom teacher in Kentucky and administrators, it should not matter if you're a teacher or an administrator, no matter what county you live in Kentucky. Everyone should have the same benefits available to them. Over the years, sick day program has started rolling over unused personal days, emergency days, and leave time to sick days. This was never the intent of the sick day program. I handed out a chart to you all. It's a sick day discussion, if you see that. One of the things we talked about in PPOB and Public Pension Oversight Board, and we discovered that there were some issues with this. And if you look at that, in 2018, 66 employees received over 300 sick days. In fact, one of them received 591 sick days. Now you do the math, and that's about 24 sick days a year. That's not the program's intent. And you can go down through there. The last one, this past year, 55 retirees received more than 300 sick days, with the highest one being 453. And that averaged out to 15 a year. Still not the program's intent. So what does Senate Bill 4 do? First, the bill includes the reporting requirements by school districts to the levels of sick leave accrued and requires a TRS actuary to outline the sick leave program cost in the annual valuation. Right now, we only have a guesstimate. We think that we owe, a couple years ago, we paid off $383 million in sick day liability, what we called the green box dollars. We thought that was all we owed. We found out later that only paid for the teachers who had already retired. Current teachers had a sick day liability of about $583. And that, Mr. Chairman, is a guesstimate. TRS has no way of knowing because they do not know how many sick days any individual has until they retire, and those are reported. So we want those reported every year, so when we get an actuarial report, we know what our liability is. Secondly, the new language addresses how sick leave accruals in future can be added for purposes of payments and inclusion in a member's high 3 or high 5. Let me explain. The bill is not retroactive, so whatever you have on June the 30th, 2024 this year, whatever you have, that's what you have. It doesn't affect that at all. It only affects going forward. Going forward, you can only accumulate 10 sick days a year. And like I said, the bill does not impact sick day accruals or what is included in sick leave for the purpose of leave a member can use while working. None of that changes. What does change is how sick leave is earned in future years are subject to payments and inclusion, how that's included in the member's high 3 or high 5. It will be limited to 10 days a year. That's the original intent of the bill. And it will be a maximum of 10 days. Additional days, sick days each year. Every year you can add 10 sick days. All other accumulated days, it's not a use it or lose it. All other accumulated days will tend to accumulate. They can still be paid out at the end of the teacher's career, but it will not count toward their final calculation for retirement. So they don't lose any days. They still get paid for them, but they just won't be able to include them in retirement. That's a short version, Mr. Chairman. I know there's a lot of questions, so be glad to entertain.
Senator Thayer has a question. Begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Higdon, I appreciate you bringing this bill. Sick day abuse has been an issue that I've been concerned with for a long time. There's no disincentive for teachers to try to bank sick days because the state pays for the TRS contribution. There's no incentive for school districts to not allow these sick days to accrue like this. And ultimately, it's the taxpayer that foots the bill. And it's just unfair. It's just unfair to the taxpayer. They're called sick days for a reason. They're not called pension spiking days. So I'm glad you're bringing this bill. I was proud to sign on as a co-sponsor. And I make a motion that Senate Bill 4 be reported favorably. Motion same shall pass.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. We still have several that want to speak to this. So we have a motion and a second. Senator Chambers Armstrong has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Higdon, for being here. I appreciate the work in the committee sub. I think it's a much better bill. My question is, just yesterday, the House was taking up measures about our substitute teacher shortage, and I heard you say that you don't think that this encourages teachers to use their sick days. I'm curious if I've heard from teachers saying the opposite, that this will encourage them to use all of their sick days. And I'm curious what conversations you've had about how this measure could impact our substitute teacher shortage.
I really haven't had any conversations about the substitute teacher shortage. I do know that one of the main concerns that I heard from educators and other groups was that they didn't want to have a use it or lose it system. And in this bill, if you don't use all your sick days or all your personal days, you don't lose them. They roll over, and you can get paid at the end of your career and roll it into deferred comp or whatever you decide to do with it. But like I said, the original intent of the sick day bill was allowed 10 days a year. and somehow we've gotten away from that and allowing a lot more. And one of my main concerns is in 2030, it's only 2 budget cycles away, Chairman McDaniel, only 2 cycles away, our payment to TRS for the unfunded liability and teachers' retirement is $2 billion, not for the biennium, per year. If many of you remember, we started out in 2016, the first time we paid the full load, it was $500 million. In 2030, it'll be $2 billion. That wagon is getting pretty hard to pull, and we just need to make sure that little things like this, it's a great perk for teachers. I'm not trying to take anything from them. I just want to get back to the original intent of the sick day bill.
Thank you for the answer. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Wheeler has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I've been looking at this bill, and I actually one of my good friend's mothers, who's a lifetime educator, called me this morning and said, she'd heard from a few of her friends back home, and having looked at the bill, and I just want to make it clear here because I've always been a very pro-educator Republican, they can still count 10 days per year towards their eventual retirement. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So
Whatever
you
you
can
have,
accumulate 300.
if they were hired after 2008, they can only accumulate 300. If they were hired before pre-2008, they can earn more than 300. There's no cap on those that were hired before 2008.
So if you had somebody right now with 591 in the bank, they'll have 601 next year, 611 the year after that, 621. Under your bill, you're not really limiting them from accumulating those additional days. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're limiting how many days a year they can accumulate. Instance, the 591 day person retired in 25 years. So that's, again, if you do the math, that's about 24 days a year. That was never the intent. I don't know how they accumulated that many days. I wasn't privy to that information.
When I spoke with her, sorry for the series, Mr. Chairman, I was just trying to
Proceed.
flesh this out a little bit. She told me back when she was teaching, and she's been retired probably about almost 20 years at this point, she was only ever allowed 10 days a year back when she was teaching. Is that right?
That's the way the original intent was 10 days a year that they could if they didn't use them, they could use them toward their final calculation for their retirement. Yes,
Okay, that's what she told me. She said always only got 10 days a year. So, I get it. Everybody wants to have a comfortable retirement, and I'm generally for that. But I just don't see where this really harms anybody, since they're going to get paid for their days. So it really doesn't stop at least the original intent of the program of these people having their pensions an additional bonus, so to speak, at the end. Is that correct?
That's correct. And my intent was to not hurt anyone, to make sure that whatever they've accumulated, they get to keep. Anything they accumulate 10 days going forward, they get to keep. And if they have more, if they have personal days, other sick days, some school districts give more than 10 sick days. If they have additional sick days, again, they can roll those over. At the end of their career, they can cash those in and put them in deferred comp or whatever they decide to do. But they will not lose those days. It's not a use it or lose it type bill.
And that's the only. I just want to be clear. It's not affecting any days currently accrued, and it's just simply setting a policy that from here on out, you're getting the original 10 days and towards your retirement, and then anything else can either go towards deferred comp or you can use it.
Absolutely correct.
So you're going to get paid 100% of what's owed to you.
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right, Senator Higdon, let's make some room at the table. We've got a couple that want to speak that are guests of ours. First is Jessica Heiler. Ms. Heiler, if you could come up and introduce yourself, and for the record, and you can tell us what organization you're with, and couple 2 or 3 minutes if you don't mind. We still have obviously other business to take care of in the committee, but the floor is yours. Is
We're
this also
together.
Kelly Reed?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to actually let Kelly start, if you don't
All right.
mind.
Good afternoon. I wanted to thank you for allowing us to speak and take a moment to speak about SB 4.
If you could tell us your name and organization you're with for the record, please,
Yes,
before you get started.
I'm Kelly Reed. I'm a high school English teacher in Boone County since 1998, and I'm the president of the Boone County Education Association and a member of the Kentucky Education Association.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Jessica's going to speak to you in a few minutes about how this impacts us as individuals, but I wanted to take a moment to discuss how this impacts us as a system. Yesterday, Representative Truitt introduced HB 387 in the House Ed Committee and spoke about the dearth of substitutes not only in his district but across the system. Because of the dire need of this situation, Representative Truitt's bill passed out of committee unanimously. We know the situation, we know the need. In Boone County, our certified employees get 10 sick days and 2 personal days each year. We also get 3 emergency days, but those are static. If you use them, they're there. If you don't use them, they're there as well. We can carry 4 personal days from year to year, but anything above 4 converts to a sick day. There's little variance across the system, and I know of no district that allots more than 3 personal days or permits more than 4 to be banked. As written, SB 4 will necessitate that personal days are used or lost from year to year. The payout for a personal day at the end of your career is not the same value as to use a personal day today. As such, SB 4 will have a direct impact on our sub-issue. In Boone County, we have over 1,600 classroom teachers. 1,600 times 2, the number of personal days we receive each year, is 3,800. That is 3,800 extra subs that we will need to find. Or that is 3,800 extra coverages that will be placed on the backs of already overburdened teachers. Added to that issue is the continuity of instructions. No one knows the dynamics and needs of a classroom like the classroom teacher. That is not to say that we do not value our subs, we do. But students need that continuity of instruction day in and day out. There will also be a financial encumbrance on districts. Your actuarially analysis has confirmed that there would be some savings, but they would be slight. However, those funds for that 3,800 subs will come from the district's general fund and will be of a greater impact in the district like Representative Truitt's and others, but those slight savings will be passed on to the locals. I ask that you balance the slight savings with the impact that this will place on the local districts as you consider this bill and your vote today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Jessica Heiler, and I'm a kindergarten teacher in Fayette County and president of the Fayette County Education Association. School board policy in my district grants teachers 10 sick days each year, which accumulate, if unused, 3 personal days that roll over to sick leave if they're not used by June 30th, and 3 emergency days that do not accumulate if unused. In my district specifically, this means that teachers do not take if they do not take any of their allocated leave time in 1 year, they could only use 10 days towards their retirement calculation under the provisions of Senate Bill 4, instead of a possible 13 days. Like many teachers across Kentucky, I had to use quite a few of my sick leave days early in my career for maternity leave and to provide for care for my own children. In Kentucky, 77% of public school teachers are women and face similar family needs early in their career. As our kids get older, we can start rebuilding our leave time as we prepare for retirement. Knowing that those leave days have value at the end of our career is an incentive to keep them instead of using them, which keeps our talented and experienced educators in the classroom every day with our kids. However, another big reason why teachers don't use their leave time is because we simply don't have subs to cover our absences. We go to school sick because we can't bear to leave our kids uncovered. That leave time that was granted to us as part of our employment, and which under this bill has less value than the 110% that we're giving to our kids every day. By limiting the amount of time to 10 days per year that teachers can count towards their final salary at retirement, many teachers will use their personal days rather than save them up. And we simply don't have enough subs, I'll say that again, to cover these additional absences. Most Kentucky teachers work an entire career and earn a very modest pension at retirement without Social Security. The provisions of SB 4 will make that amount even less. The teaching profession has enough challenges: shortages of teachers, support staff, subs, and salaries that haven't kept up with inflation. We see this play out every day as teachers leave the profession in droves. Too many vacant positions remain unfilled. We need to work together to implement policies that attract people to the teaching profession rather than penalize those who show up to work for our kids. So I implore you to show our teachers that you value what we do and our service to the Commonwealth, and vote no on Senate Bill 4. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one question for y'all before you leave. Do you have any idea when the 3 personal days began rolling over into a sick day, when that policy was started locally in Boone County or Fayette?
In Fayette County, it's probably been less than 10 years, if I would need to look to be for sure, but it's not been a very long period of time.
Right.
I'm not sure in Boone County, but I know that has been in place for my entire tenure, which starts back to 1998.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Higdon, would you like to come up and summarize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and certainly thank those teachers, Jessica and Kelly, for their testimony. I just, if any other questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Like I said, it's a pretty simple bill. The original intent of the sick day program was 10 days, and that's what we're trying to get back to. Yes, it doesn't show that the actual analysis doesn't show a lot of savings, but remember, we really don't know what our liability is. So we're comparing what it's going to save to an estimate, and we simply don't know. And the other part that, again, it's not a use it or lose it. Those days will carry forward, and they can cash those in at the end of their retirement. They just can't count them toward retirement.
Senator Wheeler has one short follow-up question.
The $900 million, how long did it take to accrue that? Do you know?
The $900 million, we paid
How
off.
many years that represented?
Okay, we paid off $389 million of that to in the last budget. Okay,
I mean, I guess what I was trying to figure out, how many years of extra days did that represent? Do you know?
I can't answer that.
I didn't know if it was just since 2008 or since,
We've been
1960, you know what I'm saying.
It was it's complicated. It was in the green box dollars. We've been paying $40 million a year on that for years. And what it was is the liability of the current retired teachers. So every time a group of teachers, retired teachers, moved into that, then we had to pay. They were in that green box, so we paid that liability off, which was $389 million and change, somewhere around that. And after we paid that off, we thought we had it all paid for, but we found out later that we still had $580-some million liability for current teachers. Okay. And I've also requested Senator McDaniel include that in the budget and pay that off. I went in to ask him for money, and I only asked him for $1 billion, and he looked at me like I had 3 eyeballs. So anyway.
Senator Elkins has the final question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Higdon, for presenting this bill. So just one quick question. This bill, and I've read it, and I think I know the answer to this already, but I've been asked a couple of times, so I want to make sure that we get the right narrative out there. This bill does not take away any already accrued sick days. Nobody loses anything they've already accrued. Is that correct?
Senator Elkins, that is correct. On June the 30th of this year, whatever sick days you have in place on June the 30th, you will keep those until retirement. That nothing is taken away. And from that date, from July 1st on, you can only accumulate 10 sick days per year under this bill.
Which was the original intent
Which
of,
was
to
the-
begin
which
with,
was
the
original
sick day
intent.
policy. Yeah.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing further.
Very good. Senate Bill 4, as amended by Senate Committee Sub, has a motion from Senator Thayer, second by Senator McDaniel. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Chambers Armstrong.
May I explain my no vote, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. I believe our teachers are underpaid, they are undervalued. I would hope this body would be passing legislation that would pay them more and give them more benefits. I worry we're moving in the wrong direction, so I vote no.
Senator Elkins.
Aye.
Senator Harper Angel.
Explain my vote,
Yes, you may.
Mr. Chair. I vote no. And Senator Higdon, I want to thank you for bringing this bill and particularly your hard work on the committee sub. However, I have to disagree with diminishing any benefits for our teachers. I believe that's just going to exacerbate our ability to maintain and hire high-quality teachers, and I think that it will affect our substitutes, and therefore I have to vote no, but I do thank you for your work.
Senator Mays Bledsoe.
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Chairman. I vote aye, but I do share some of the concerns about teachers and parents, especially women in the workforce, and providing for them to do more and have more benefits in the classroom. And I'm committed to continuing that conversation as we move forward, even though I respect the intent of the bill and why this makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Senator McDaniel.
Aye.
Senator Nemes.
May I explain my vote, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you may.
I have an aye vote, and we've already done this with legislators. We knew we had to fix the pensions, so we stopped the spiking. And the teachers' main concern a couple years ago, even above salary, was the pensions, to make sure that they were going to solvency from insolvency, and we have done that, and this is another step towards that. You still get your sick days. You still can have them paid out at the end. It just affects the pensions. That's all this bill does, is affects the pensions. I talk to teachers too, because they called me and were upset about this. And when we sat down at the coffee shop and explained it out, they said, "Oh, we didn't understand the bill, and we're fine with this." So I have an aye vote.
Senator Storm.
Explain my no vote.
Yes, you may.
Senator, I appreciate you, and I appreciate all the efforts you've given. I've spoken with TRS today. I've spoken with superintendents throughout my district. I've spoken with teachers. And I've also noticed that 4 of the representatives I share Laurel County with, Truett, Bray, Lewis, and Smith, all co-signed as sponsors on House Bill 387 regarding substitute teachers. So my concern is focused there primarily. So for today, I vote no.
Senator Thayer.
I'd like to explain my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, you may.
I vote aye. This debate over teacher compensation is so simplistic because people want to ignore the facts of what this General Assembly has been doing since 2017 to sustain our teacher retirement system and put it on the path to solvency. Starting in 2017, under the recommendation of then Governor Matt Bevin and continued every year since then, we have put in twice the required legal amount into the teacher pension system. That is over $1 billion a year. Through this budget cycle that we're currently in, the taxpayers of Kentucky have put nearly $10 billion into the TRS system to stabilize teachers' retirement. And we've got a long way to go till we get it to full funding, but we are on the path to that faster than we would be had we not put in twice what we are required to do by law. Now, these sick days, when used for spiking, they cost the taxpayers money. It costs taxpayers money. I like Senator Higdon's bill. I would go further. He's a lot kinder than I am because I think some of these situations where people have 300 and some days stacked up to use to spike their pensions, it flies in the face of everything I stand for as someone who stands up for our taxpayers. So this is a reasonable bill, and I ask you, I implore you to please understand we have been double funding your pensions since 2017. Now, what would happen if we stopped doing it? What if we only put the $500 million a year in that we're required to by law instead of the $1 billion a year that we put in. I'm sure you'd be here packing the room if we did that. I vote yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Wheeler.
Mr. Chairman, explain my aye vote.
Yes, you may.
You know, I understand some of the challenges coming from a rural district of recruiting educators and the value of public schools, but you know, this bill just seems like such a non-issue to me in that it restores the original intent, which was 10 days a year, and nobody loses a dime of anything. I mean, they get paid their days, they get to take their days, they can still, you know, put them into deferred comp at the end. They still accrue 10 days a year. I mean, I don't see that a dime is being taken from anyone. In fact, they can still accrue another 10 days a year. I share the concerns of my colleague, Senator Chambers Armstrong, that we do need to have a compensation discussion about getting educators to a place to where they can, you know, live comfortably. Clearly, with all the inflation that's happened in the last 2 or 3 years, even, you know, professionals have had it, you know, of which teachers are and attorneys. I mean, all of us have really felt the squeeze, and it's tough. There's no doubt. Life has gotten more expensive. But to me, this is just simply getting back to the original intent of the bill and letting people and everybody's still made whole. So with that being said, I vote aye.
Senator Williams. Aye. Senator Mills.
I vote aye, and many of the comments that have been made previously I agree with. There's been a lot of work done on our pensions since the Majority Caucus took over, and the great work in the PPOB. It continues with this small correction. So, Senator Higdon, Senate Bill 4 passes with favorable expression, 8-3, and congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Next item, our final item on the agenda, because we are passing over, if you're new to the room, Senate Bill 8 and Senate Bill 131. The next item is Senate Bill 143, brought to us by Senator Jason Howell. Senator Howell, if you want to fill your water glass up and then introduce yourselves for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If my memory serves me correctly, I think this is the first time I've had the pleasure of being in front of your committee, so appreciate you having me.
Well, welcome. It's a tough committee.
Senate Bill 143 is a simple bill to set up a constitutional amendment to add some clarity to our voter election integrity. Sections 145 and 155 of the state constitution say who can vote and who can't vote. Section 145 sets a floor of U.S. citizenship for voting, and Section 155 carves out some exclusions for people that have committed constitutional offenses like treason, people that are presently incarcerated or are convicted felons. We've gone through issues involving that on numerous occasions. And for those who are mentally incompetent to vote. What it doesn't do is it doesn't create a ceiling on anything. It doesn't create any kind of limitations for non-citizens not being able to vote. So there have been in certain parts of the country, out in California and New York, there have been local ordinances put in where allowing non-citizens to vote in local elections. And those ordinances, those allowances have been challenged and successfully defended because the constitutions that are similar to our language do not expressly preclude non-citizens from voting. So this would close that window down the line to where only U.S. citizens would be allowed to vote in state and local elections.
Any questions for Senator Howell? Senator Chambers Armstrong has a question.
I knew you would be the constitutional scholar of the group.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for taking my question. It's good to see you, Senator Howell. So I was looking at Section 154 of the Constitution of Kentucky, which clearly says that only a U.S. citizen is allowed to vote in an election under the state at a particular precinct. help me understand how this isn't already covered by both our Kentucky Constitution as well as the federal Constitution, and how, if under the laws of Kentucky, a state were to try to pass such an ordinance, it wouldn't be immediately struck down by a court under the doctrine of express or implied
Because
preemption.
it doesn't preclude a non-citizen from voting. It says that a U.S. citizen is, that if you are a U.S. citizen, you are allowed suffrage. It doesn't preclude any other groups. And it was axiomatic in 1792. Everyone was proud to be a citizen. They didn't really care about any of that. But it takes it into a statutory realm there where the General Assembly or later on could change it. And that's the argument, legal argument, as I understand it, from some of those challenges in California and New York, were that, excuse me, that the local elections, local governments could make this, and because it wasn't specifically excluded, then it would be allowed.
Motion on the bill.
There's a motion from Senator Thayer. Any additional questions? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Chambers Armstrong.
May I explain my no vote, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you may.
I disagree with my colleague and friend, Senator Howell, on the interpretation of the Kentucky Constitution. I believe this is already covered. And I worry that we are passing a lot of legislation this session focused on hypothetical problems that might spring up when we have real problems in our communities right now. And so I appreciate the intent, appreciate the effort, appreciate you taking my question, but I'm a no vote.
Senator Elkins.
Aye.
Senator Harper Angel.
Explain my no vote, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, you may.
I vote no and follow our constitutional wizard. And she knows what she's speaking of. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Mays Bledsoe. Senator McDaniel. Senator Nemus. Senator Storm.
Aye.
Senator Thayer. Senator Wheeler.
Aye.
Senator Williams. Senator Mills.
I vote aye. Senate Bill 143 passes with favorable expression 9-2. Congratulations, Senator Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members
This
of the committee.
concludes our business today before us. A motion to adjourn, please. So moved.